The Haunted Train Journey. Arav, a 12-year-old boy, loved adventures. He had always dreamed of traveling alone and exploring the world. One summer, his parents finally agreed to let him visit his grandparents, who lived in a distant town. They booked him a night train, and Arav was thrilled. At the railway station, his father handed him the ticket. "Keep it safe, and don't talk to strangers," he warned. Arav nodded excitedly. As the train whistled and the doors opened, Arav waved goodbye and stepped inside. The train looked old, with dim lights flickering along the passage. He checked his ticket, Coach B7, Seat 21. He walked through the narrow corridor until he found his compartment. It was empty except for an old man sitting by the window. The man wore a long coat and a hat that covered most of his face. He didn't move, and his breathing was barely noticeable. Arav hesitated, but then placed his bag on the seat and settled in. The train whistled again and began to move. The journey had begun. As the train picked up speed, Arav looked outside. The moon shone brightly, casting eerie shadows over the trees rushing past. Suddenly, the old man in the coat spoke in a whispery voice. "This train is not what it seems." Arav turned to him, startled. "What do you mean?" The old man sighed. "There's a reason no one takes the night train on this route anymore." Arav felt a chill down his spine. He looked around the compartment, still empty. The ticket collector hadn't even come by yet. "Why?" Arav asked hesitantly. The man took a deep breath. "Long ago, there was a terrible accident on this very track. Many passengers never made it home." Arav gulped. "What happened?" The old man's voice lowered. "They say their spirits still travel on this train, searching for their lost journey." Arav tried to laugh it off, but deep inside, a strange feeling crept into his heart. Just then, the train lights flickered, and a sudden chill filled the air. The old man looked at Arav. "You should get off at the next stop," he whispered. "Before it's too late." The train rattled through the night. Arav clutched his bag tightly. He told himself that ghosts weren't real. But just then, thud. A soft sound echoed from the corridor. Arav turned his head sharply. Thud. Thud. It was slow but steady, like footsteps. Someone, or something, was walking outside the compartment. Arav looked at the old man, but he was silent, staring blankly ahead. The footsteps grew louder. The door handle of the compartment began to turn. Arav's heart pounded. He shut his eyes. "It's just my imagination," he thought. But when he opened them, the door creaked open. And standing there was a woman in an old-fashioned dress, her face pale and hollow. Her eyes, dark and empty, locked onto Arav. Arav gasped and backed into his seat. The woman took a step forward, her lips parting slightly. "You have my ticket," she whispered. Arav's hands trembled as he looked down at his ticket. To his horror, the ink had faded, and new words appeared in their place. Passenger name, unknown. Journey, one way. The woman lifted a skeletal finger and pointed at him. "You are in my seat." Arav jumped up, his breath quick and shallow. He turned to the old man for help, but the man was gone. His seat was empty, as if he had never been there. The woman stepped closer, reaching out. Arav's body froze. He had to escape. Summoning all his courage, Arav bolted out of the compartment. The corridor was darker than before, the lights barely flickering. He ran through the train, but every compartment was empty. Outside the window, he saw dark shadows moving alongside the train, figures, passengers, watching him. Their faces were blurry, their hands pressed against the glass. The train's whistle screeched loudly, almost like a scream. Arav spotted the emergency stop chain. He grabbed it and pulled with all his might. The train shuddered violently. The lights went out completely. A deep, ghostly wail filled the air. Then, silence. When Arav opened his eyes, he was lying on the platform of an abandoned railway station. The train was gone. There was no sign of it, no tracks, no people. He looked around in confusion, clutching his ticket. But when he unfolded it, the paper had turned to dust in his hands. Arv stumbled forward, his heart still racing. Ahead, he saw the dim lights of another station in the distance. He ran toward it, never looking back. The next morning, when he finally reached his grandparents' home, he told them everything. His grandfather's face turned pale. "The night train on that route," he murmured. "That train crashed 20 years ago, and no one survived." Arv's hands went cold. He had traveled on a ghost train. And it had almost taken him with it.